Breakfast with Bob.
Welcome to Breakfast with Bob. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by PTO, the Pro Triathletes Organization, by Amp Human, by VeloFix, Normatec, Form Goggles, UCAN, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We just sent out 3,921 grants, totaling $5.9 million to each challenge athletes in the game of life. Our next guest, six-time Wildflower champion, a two-time Ironman champion, three-time 70.3 champion, Mr. Jesse Thomas joins us. How you doing, Jess?
Doing well. Thanks a lot for chatting with me, Bob. Good to see you, man. It's been a while.
You know, it's pretty cool. We basically did your whole career together.
I know. Honestly, yeah, we did. You were one of the first people I talked to. I think maybe the first, honestly, after I won that first Wildflower.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. So anyways,
Crazy.
I've always had a propensity for looking at guys who do steeplechase and women who do steeplechase. They're just tough, right? And if you look at the races that you won, the Wales and Lanzarote and six-time Wildflower, they're tough races, right? It's you against the course. Nobody's saying at the end of those races, oh, so-and-so drafted on me.
Yeah.
It's basically what led you to steeplechase? Because that's, that's not one of those races that people normally are drawn to.
Yeah, it's typically you have to have a screw loose, right?
Yeah.
I think that I was, and I mean it plays into triathlon. I was a good distance runner in high school, pretty good in college, but I was always just a little bit of I wasn't like a purebred, like you see those guys that are out there and they're, 5'7", 110 pounds, and that just wasn't me. I was more athletic. I played basketball through high school, which you and I have talked about.
You can slam dunk, baby. I love it.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I dunked on my track recruiting trip. So I just had a little bit more athleticism, and I thought that when I saw the steeplechase, I thought that might suit that athleticism, and it did. My coach historically admitted to me, he's like, we never really made anyone for the steeplechase because I always felt like my athletes couldn't quite handle it, and I was worried about them getting hurt. And then I was like not good enough that it mattered too much if I got hurt, so they kind of threw me in there. They were like, if he can get us some points at Pac-10s or at NCAAs in the steeplechase, great. And I just ended up having some success there.
Wow, All-American. Come on now.
Yeah, that's good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So out of Stanford, did you have a sense at that point? Your MS, mechanical engineering?
Yeah.
What did you want to get into at that point?
Well, I was going to be, the long story and the quick version of it is that I wanted to try to run in the Olympics, and I was 11th in the U.S. in the steeplechase my senior year.
Yep.
At 22, and then I broke my foot the next fall in cross country. And I got a navicular stress fracture, which is a recurring theme now. I guess now that was my first of three that I had over the course of my lifetime, and it just took that was my first experience. It took a year to recover from that or more. And in that time I lost, my scholarship ended. I wasn't like a pro. I had no support. So I was finishing my master's degree and started cycling as a means to be competitive and to, and to exercise, and then got into cycling and race cycling for about 6 months before I crashed and broke my neck.
I remember that because you could have been paralyzed.
Yeah, I was really, really lucky to, I was banged up for a long, long time, but to not have any permanent damage, obviously, and nothing that limits me in any significant way. And then and so but that episode, when I broke my neck, I was 24. And had just finished my master's degree. I was working at a startup with some friends, kind of part-time, and that just forced me into full-time startup life. Because I wasn't active for like a year after that, and much less pursuing any type of serious training. And so that kind of led me to a whole different stretch.
And when did triathlon come into your world?
So yeah, I had been working in the startup like 60, 80, 100 hours a week, like you do when you're in your early 20s and you just left Stanford and you live in San Francisco. And I needed a break from it. I was super burnt, and I just discovered triathlon as this fun thing to go do. And it's a typical story that a lot of pros have, where they went out. I went out and I did a local Saturday fun try, and I won it. And it was, and it was like it was a sprint, and I just kind of fell in love with it. What I remember loving about it was after 4.5, 5 years in like NCAA Division I athletics and racing at like at least a national class level, it was really fun to go back and just be part of this like community event to start. And it just felt like kind of the core of racing, what racing was for me growing up. And that's what drew me to it.
Well, there's a big leap from doing that to, going to Wildflower as a pro.
Yeah.
And
but Wildflower has that same vibe though too,
Totally.
even though it is like, and that's probably part of the reason why I did well there too, is that it has that like homegrown feel, even though it's, an internationally competitive event.
Right.
It just has that feel. So
that real vibe. So when you decide you're going to go to Wildflower and race there, you Matt Lieto's your bud.
Yeah.
And loans you a bike, kits, pretty much everything.
Matt loaned me the helmet. I had a friend in Eugene that loaned me a bike because my bike broke on Wednesday, the day before we were leaving to drive down to the race.
Yeah.
And then I had like a hand-me-down kit that someone had given me, like an unbranded Pearl Izumi kit, ironically, which ended up being my first major sponsor. I'm sure that was no coincidence. But anyway, that was it. And I went down there and just had this, as you and I have talked about a lot, this shocker of a race, and climbed my way in from 20 plus place out of the water to 10th off the bike to eventually first a mile before the finish line and cross the finish line. And the funny story that, that we tell is that I went across the finish line and literally nobody knew who I was, including the announcer.
Right.
Across the finish line. Yeah. He goes, "Wow. And here comes our men's champion." And then looks over and, "Dude, what's your name?" So
because we did a thing on stage the night before, right? When we're interviewing everybody on the stage. I think you were race number 48, or I forget what number you were.
87 is the number. Yeah. It was added on because I was a late sign up. So it was after the men's numbers were like the first 50, and then like 51 through 80 were the women's, and they put me at 87.
And you buy some aviators at the drugstore on the way in for a few bucks, and
racing them. Yeah, it was crazy. And then it just so happened that they were live streaming on YouTube these post-race interviews. Yeah. And it just caught me in this, I'd never been interviewed by anyone for anything. And it caught me in this like just complete shock state where I was just so excited. And, talking about how my friends in Eugene were going to freak out when they found out I won the race. And I had my aviators on. It just ended up being this really funny thing that kind of propelled me into the sport.
Well, then you got on the cover of Triathlete magazine, and everything just started rolling. And what did Lieto say when because you must have seen him on the way back on the run.
That's right. I forgot about that part of the story. There was the night before he had let me borrow all this stuff, he let me his helmet, but it was like all these other like little knick-knack things that I needed to like hold my nutrition on the bike and everything. And he was like, "Man," he's like, I'm going to let you use all this stuff, but you have to promise me there's clause C. Clause C is you are not allowed to pass me on the run." And I came up to him right at the top of the big climb on the run, like 7 miles in.
Yeah.
And he held up this C because he could hear me coming up. And I like just came up next to him. I was like, "Oh man, is it all right?" He's like, "It's okay, man. This one time." And then I ran by and kept going.
Clause C. I love it.
Yep, Clause C.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Hey, so how did that change everything for you? Obviously, you're on the cover of Triathlete magazine.
Well,
At
yeah, it
that
was
point,
like
yeah.
it
Did
was
you get
it
some
was a little
sponsors?
bit. Yeah, it was a slow burn. I mean, I got a lot of, I got interviewed by everyone after that,
Yep.
after that race, which was cool. And then, I went and I finished top, you know, uh, in the prize money. I'm actually proud to say I finished in the prize money in every race, my entire career besides the world championships, which is pretty awesome.
Wow.
Or if I, dropped out or had some other random
Sure.
thing. So I didn't win any other races, but then it was really the next year. It was the next year because the next year was, I think, Wildflower's maybe 35th anniversary or something significant.
Yep.
And so Triathlete magazine did a story on Wildflower, and they wanted to put me on the cover, and they put me on the cover in my aviators.
Yes.
And which was just, a unique cover for them. And then I went into that race, and that was just this big, it was just this huge kind of thing for me. And it was just crazy because a year later had gone from this no one had heard of to on the cover of Triathlete magazine, and honestly feeling pretty sheepish about that, because I hadn't won any races since then. There was a lot of that was kind of a fluke that I won the year before, and I thought a bit of that myself. And so I was pretty nervous prior to that race, but luckily had another great day there, like I did many times, and won that one. And that was like the most relief that probably after any race that I've ever felt.
Yeah, because you're coming in with all the hubbub, and now you win it when people are like, okay, is this guy a flash in the pan or not?
Yeah. It was just like and at that point I kind of had felt like I had legitimized myself as a pro, kind of, because I had won a race back to back, and I beat some pretty good people in that race, and so it was a good feeling.
What was it about that course that was it's so perfect for you?
Well, it's I'm an engineer. It's basic math. So it's really simple. Like, you basically wetsuit swim, which, shortens the swim, which is good for me. And then a super hard bike ride and a super hard run, which between the two of them ends up adding 15 more minutes to the race, And so you basically have 15 more minutes of riding and running for me to catch up or pass people. That's what I need, And I think particularly the run, just the combo of such a hard ride followed by such a hard run makes that run just destroy people. Yes. And having a strength running background like I did, if you run like I think the only person only Simon Lessing and Terenzo have ever run faster than I did on that course, and not a lot. But I mean, I would run 1:14 or whatever on that course, and most guys were running like 1:20. Just so hard, such a hard course. Yeah,
it's always hot.
Yeah, you could just make up huge differences on the run there.
So, as a steeplechase guy, I always like the carnage in the pit. What do you remember from your steeplechase days of some of the worst biffs that you saw?
Oh, I mean, well, it's a rite of passage. I went down in my first steeplechase.
Did you really?
Yeah, actually, they put me in the steeplechase. They put me in the steeplechase my sophomore year, just kind of last minute at the big meet, which is the race between Stanford and Cal, right? So it's our kind of rivalry.
Yeah, Super Bowl meet for you guys. Yeah.
And Stanford had we had a dominant endurance team. I mean, it was, we were NCAA top 3 in cross country every year I was there. And so we, and Cal had some guys, but we were pretty good. So they put me in the steeplechase as kind of this last minute thing. And we had swept every event from the 800 up. And the steeplechase was like the last event.
No pressure.
And I get thrown in there and I'm racing and I'm like battling for third place with this one Cal guy. There's two Stanford guys in front of me, way in front of us.
Yeah.
And on the last lap, I go around, I'm like, it's like third hurdle, maybe second hurdle. And I eat it and I can't, and I miss out. And this Cal guy gets third place and breaks up our sweep of all the distance events.
Had you ever gone down in the water pit?
No, it wasn't in the water pit. Luckily, I didn't eat it in the water pit. But I've seen plenty of those. Somebody goes down almost every race, at least at the NCAA level. But then on the flip side of that, my junior year, so literally just a year later, I was one of the better steeplechasers in certainly in the conference, and the reigning Pac-10 champion. I was running neck and neck with him on the last lap, and he went down on the last barrier, and I won. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so we were right next to each other, and I'll never forget. It's like one of those things I remember, just him going down and me like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna win!" Don't screw up, and I can win Pac-10s. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
I remember Tom Hunt was a top runner back in the day, and steeple, and he said the difference between steeple and anything else, other races you do, you start to tie up a little bit.
Yeah.
You sort of you sort of fall apart gradually.
Yeah.
When you're in the steeple, you fall apart now. Like next second, their piano is like crushing you.
It's done. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, the one like interesting another like math tidbit is that like all of the the USA Championship qualifying time, the Olympic A standard, B standard, all these like standards, they're in the steeplechase, they're almost always the same time per lap as a 10K. And so it's a 3K steeple is the same as a 10K lap pace, right? And that's how much those barriers matter, like how much it slows you down. It's a third of the distance and you're running the same pace. It's pretty crazy.
So when I look at your other wins, like Wales and Lanzarote, again, I was in Lanzarote one year, and people talk about hard Ironmans. I don't think there's anything harder than Ironman Lanzarote.
Yep.
But did you dig that one too, just because it was that hard?
I mean, it was literally, you knew by then. I mean, I spent the first half of my career focusing on half Ironman distance races, and I'd won a fair number on the tougher courses, and then so when I transitioned to Ironman, I was just like, I gotta just find the hardest Ironmans I can, because that's where I'm going to have success. I can't go do Texas, I can't go do like one of these things where it's just going to be front pack with a line of 30 guys up, coming in just on a train. And so I looked up and it was really simple. I went to Torsten's, website.
Rating.
And they had what were the slowest Ironmans. The first slowest one was Wales. The next slowest one was Lanzarote. So those were the two that I chose. Wales had 6,000 feet of climbing on the bike and like 2,000 feet of climbing on the run.
Oh my God.
And Lanzarote was 9,000 feet of climbing on the bike. So it's just devastating and windy, like actually pretty hot, which tends to not be my strong suit, but dry enough there that it's not devastating. And so that was why I chose it. And I mean, I think I rode in both of those races. Like I rode over 5 hours at Wales when I won, and because it was raining too.
I'll toss that in too.
Yeah, totally. And then at Lanzarote, I had a good ride at Lanzarote, and I was like, I think it was 4:45, maybe something like that. I mean, it's slow, it's hard, Yeah. So it's crazy.
So then you go a couple years ago. You've been doing sort of the same events, and then you go to Challenge Roth.
Yeah.
And if you look at Challenge Roth, that's a fast swim.
Yeah.
It's a spectacular bike ride. It's a pretty flat run.
Totally.
But it doesn't when you look at it, it's not like, okay, this isn't a Jesse Thomas, Lanzarote, Wildflower, Wales, but you'd always wanted to go sub 8.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
You want to go sub 8. And if you're going to go sub 8, that's a place to do it. So
that's a place to do it.
And you're going up against Andreas Stritz and Sebastian Kienle and Skipper. Cam Wurf is like the Hall of Fame. Right. Totally. And you're were you 38 at that point?
Yeah. Yep.
38 years
38.
old.
Yeah.
38
Yeah.
years
Totally.
old. So
Yeah,
you're
I just had my second kid about 6, 7 months beforehand. Yeah, it was crazy.
So you're setting yourself up for potentially, having a race where you're in a different zip code.
Totally.
You're with every Uber cyclist in the world. And what I love is you came out right front pack swim.
Yeah, well, what ended up happening was all of us, I mean, it was just a shocker. Andreas led, and he just didn't, and he's a fantastic swimmer.
Yeah.
And nobody pulled away on the swim. Even, a guy that there were a couple other ITU guys that didn't end up even finishing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was surprising. Like, I came out with Sebastian, who I normally swim with.
Yep.
And but yeah, we were both in the front pack, which was just crazy. Yeah.
So now you ride along, and there's Sebastian, and then here comes Cam Worth, right? Going by boat.
Yeah, I actually had a really fast transition and came out with like the top few guys. So I was in like third or fourth place, kind of in the line.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. And Sebastian and Cam were a ways back. I had actually moved into maybe first or second when Sebastian came by, and then I just tried to go with Sebastian, and then Cam came by us, and then we were both all three of us were together after about 5 miles into the ride.
So when you're riding with Sebastian Kienle and Cam Worth, right? And you're going, okay, this is a full Ironman.
Yeah.
And you go through the first half in 2:04.
Yeah.
Basically what you would do if you were racing at 70.3.
It was one of my fastest 70.3 times ever.
You've still got another 90K.
Yeah. I mean, I knew I was in great shape.
Yeah.
So I knew, and I was basically like, the goal was to try to get top 3 in that race, and I'm like, the longer I can stick with these guys, the more likely I'm going to put time on everybody else. And I just destroyed myself to stay with them. And, it was one of those like race time decisions where you're just like, it was a big, big risk, but I ended up, lucking out. But I mean, the second half of that ride, I rode 10 minutes slower. I think I rode 2:14 or 2:15 on the second half.
Second lap. Yeah.
And, it was a little bit windier, but it was mostly my legs. And, but luckily I was just I was just so strong, at that point, and really, really, really good running shape. That I was able to run hard off of that, even though I'd completely annihilated my legs in that.
Yeah, well, I remember reading it. It's like your stomach was messed up. You've got a calf strain. Your foot is scrunched.
Well, I had this sciatic problem for like a year and a half, and my whole left leg up to about my thigh was numb, and ended up being numb for months. Honestly, afterwards, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, the marathon was just this kind of like running, like thump, 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 like my left leg, just trying to keep cadence there. Yeah,
so when you come off the bike, you're not on the podium at that point.
I was in because I had a number of people, or at least Andreas passed me on the second lap. A few other guys passed me on the second lap after I popped because I was going so much slower. So I was in like seventh, maybe some seventh or eighth. And then, the goal was to run under 2:45, and so I just literally just ran at that pace. I actually ran the first half a little bit too fast. I was like, I think I was on like 2:41 or 2:42 pace in the first half, and then, but man, moved up. Cam was still in third. I passed Cam around like mile 18, and was reeling in Andreas, but didn't quite get to Andreas. And then Sebastian finished like, I think Andreas was about a minute in front of me, and Sebastian was like, and they maybe another 6 or 7 minutes in front of me.
Yeah, he was 7:46, you're 7:54. So.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
So the cool thing about Challenge Roth, I mean, I think most of the races you do, you think about Wildflower, there's not a lot of spectators out on the bike course, right?
Yeah.
There's like nobody.
No, there's nobody out there.
There's nobody out there.
Yeah.
Wales, I don't know. Assuming Lanzarote, there's like
No, you're out in the boonies most of the time. Yeah.
So here you are at Challenge Roth with the
Yeah.
biggest crowds in our sport, right? You got
Yeah.
50,000 people on Solar
Yep.
Bar Hill.
Yep.
Your
It's
class,
amazing.
pretty cool, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I wrote about it. That's a moment going up Solar Hill with
Yeah.
Cam and Sebastian,
Yeah.
like at the front of Challenge Roth, is a moment I will absolutely never forget. I mean, that one of the coolest moments of my triathlon career for sure. And
Well,
then you know, and then subsequently just running into the stadium and crossing the finish line at third there too, because it's a huge stadium.
yes.
And you do the little turn that they have, the challenge is kind of known for. And I may as well have won. I mean, that's what it felt like.
Sure.
People were cheering so loud, and my family was there, both my wife and both my kids. In fact, even at Roth, they allow you to receive aid from your family or friends if they're within 100 meters of a normal aid station.
Yeah.
So you kind of have options to have like special needs in all these different places. And it was pretty cool because my son gave me my nutrition one time, which was just cool. And
That's really cool.
Just cool memories. Yeah.
Well, and also, isn't his favorite song "Danger Zone"? And in that race,
That was it.
you can actually wear a headset, which I think is a really good idea for the run. You could use it.
I mean, I think you got to be safe, but yeah, it's a closed course, and what I ended up doing, that run is really two different stages.
Yep.
When you start, you go out and you run through some crowd for the first mile or two, but then you basically go out to this canal and you run about 12, 13 miles on this canal.
Yeah.
And it's a great running surface. It's a great place to run. It can get really hot because it can be exposed, but it's an amazing place to run a marathon because you're off the road. It's like a little bit nicer on your legs. But there's nobody out there.
Nobody.
And so, yeah. So I was basically like, if I can wear headphones, I'm going to do it out on this section. And just because in Ironman, you really want to
you want to zone out.
You want to forget that you're racing for the first half of the marathon anyway, And so it was perfect. So I did that. I plugged those in, had my, this combination of songs I liked and songs that reminded me of my family or my friends or whatever. And it was really fun. And then when I came back into town and it was like the last 10, K of the race, then I took the headphones out so I could be more engaged with the guys I was trying to pass and be more engaged with the crowd. So
very cool. And so you did it all because you got on the podium.
Yeah.
Sub 245 and one sub 8.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's sort of a drop the mic moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ironically, now you can literally say that it was, and I think that I had just accomplished all my goals there that I really wanted to accomplish, and really, in hindsight, felt like at that point I certainly hadn't accomplished everything I wanted to in my career, but I'd accomplished a lot of the things that I wanted to, which was a really nice feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you walk away from the sport at 40, right? And walk away from the sport at 40, and you have to look back at your career and go, okay, like you said, maybe that you didn't have every win that you wanted, but man, you had a pretty damn good career, and from that you built a business.
Yeah, that was the thing. I mean, that's how the story goes, is that this whole time I was kind of, we had started Picki bars in 2010, which was the year that I started racing.
Yep.
And then and it was this project that became a legitimate company after, on its own. And I mean, the last 4 or 5 years of my career were just insane. I mean, this because you and I talked about it, because you're a multiple time entrepreneur, and and I appreciate your input and support and all that. And it was just like, in fact, here's one example I'll give. So I go to Wales and do my first Ironman, win my first Ironman. That was the fall of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks later, we got an email from Trader Joe's that wanted to bring us in nationwide. And so the next spring, I'm basically completely revamping our business.
Right.
New contract manufacturer, new loans, like all this new stuff to be able to go to Trader Joe's. Subsequently, trying to get ready for Ironman Lanzarote and what I assume is going to be my first Kona.
Right.
All at the same time. I mean, it was just crazy town, like for that, like for those last few years. And so when after my daughter was born, right before Kona in 2017, and then I did Roth in 2018, I knew my body was beat up, and the business was going through some really, kind of scary times with some supply chain problems that we had, and as a result, financial distress.
Yeah.
And I just needed to focus on the business, So it was this combo thing where my body's burnt. I want to spend more time with my family, and I really have to spend more time I have to focus on the business. And that kind of led to an extended break, which ultimately led to Challenge Roth being my last race, which is crazy. I wasn't expected at the time, but that's what ended up happening.
I didn't realize that was your last race. Wow.
That was my last race. I know it's kind of awesome, actually, really, to when I look back on it, because I'm like, man, I went out on such a high note. Like I never had to go have that Ironman where you're, or those races where you're just kind of hanging on and you're not performing as well as you want to. And, it's kind of, I feel really, really lucky in hindsight as a result of that.
I don't know if there's another professional triathlete who's retired after going sub-8.
Yeah, maybe not.
Never raced again after going sub-8.
Yeah, no, maybe not. And so it's funny. It's actually weird. I had an advisor, who, a friend of mine who's a business owner, and he was like, he texted me like, just randomly. We only talk a few times a year, and he was like, he's like, hey man, massive congratulations on Challenge Roth, on fulfilling all those goals. He's like, I know you got a lot on your plate with Picki. I just want to let you know, just totally my 2 cents out of nowhere, take it for whatever you want. But I think you should seriously consider not racing anymore. Like he was just like, I've seen so many athletes have a big pop right before the end, and then try to go do 1 or 2 more, and they hurt themselves. It just ends up being kind of like not as good of an experience.
Right.
It was weird. Kind of as time went on, I was like, man, that's pretty good advice, And so,
well, you think about it, when you think about what Mark Allen in 1995, he'd been away for a year. He's
right.
13 minutes down off the bike. He runs down Thomas Hell Regal and drop the mic. I'm done.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
My 6th. What else am I going to do? If I come back and don't do as well, then you feel obligated to keep going.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's watching the Michael Jordan documentary right now. It's just, it's the same.
So amazing.
Same thing. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I feel really lucky to have had that experience.
How has Picki Bar been doing all this chaos?
It was so. I mean, the kind of story of it, 2018 was pretty scary. We have never raised any money for Picki Bars, as I've talked to you about. We I own it all, and so there isn't like a big financial backstop. When we had this big supply chain issue where we had to throw away a bunch of product. We were out of stock for a long time. But long story short, we were able to navigate that. And since then, since about the first quarter, about a year ago, we've been doing really well. We've been profitable. We've paid down some of our debt. We've been growing. We've been focusing on our direct-to-consumer business, specifically our Picki Club, which is, I think, the most, there's 1,000 energy bars out there, and ours are great. All of our products are great, but it's really hard to differentiate yourself.
Sure.
And we have this subscription service where people can, get whatever products they want every month, and there's content that's part of it, and kind of like a community atmosphere, and that's a big focus for us, and that's kind of the most unique aspect of our company, I think. And that's going really well. And so, yeah.
Well, because you're controlling your own destiny, right?
Yeah, totally.
More direct to consumer. You know exactly who your consumer is. You're able to address them whenever you want.
Yep.
And so
It's
it becomes, most big companies don't have that. They don't have that relationship with the consumer. And you've
yeah.
always had that. Obviously, right now, you can't go to events and
Yeah,
hang out
exactly.
with people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and as a result of that, we've been able to so far navigate the COVID crisis, because people are still buying online,
Yep.
and that's where we market our stuff and have it available primarily. We've definitely had aspects of our business that have suffered greatly, but overall I feel super lucky because nobody can plan for anything like this. It's just pure luck. But I feel super lucky that we've been okay and we continue to be okay so far. I'm definitely nervous about the impending
Yeah.
economy and how everything is going to pan out and what that will mean for our customers and for us. But we're just doing the best to navigate the uncertainty as we can.
I love it. One of my favorite Jesse Thomas stories is you win Wildflower and you're sort of forced to sprint at the end, coming down that ridiculous hill.
Yeah.
And during that sprint that you just broke your foot.
Yeah.
Now, was it the same bone? Was it that same navicular or something different?
It was a navicular, and it was ironically the same one on the same side. Yeah.
So when you're standing at the finish line with the folks and with Lauren, everybody is like, I just broke my foot.
Yeah, I was literally told my mom that right after the finish line. She comes up, she gives me a hug. She's like, "I'm so proud of you. I can't believe it. It's 3 in a row." And then I was like, "Thank you. I'm pretty sure my foot is broken."
And then you really couldn't race again until
No, it was the same deal. I ended up having surgery on that foot, and then it takes 7, 8 months, 9 months to heal, and then I ended up having to I started running again in December or January and ended up having to get the screw taken out because it was aggravating the joint. And so it set me back. Long story short, didn't race again until Wildflower the next year. And I, as I had written at that time, I had run 12 miles total prior to Wildflower, prior to racing.
You were rested.
I was very rested. I'd run 12 miles total. I put on like my thickest training shoes, and actually serendipitously ended up being super lucky because that was the year that the big drought started and they broke the run into 2 pieces, right, which made it better for my foot than doing all of it at the same time. So yeah, it was crazy.
Hey, Jess, congratulations on an awesome career, man.
Thanks, man.
It's really fun watching the growth of Picki Bar and just watching
thank you.
Just how you've handled yourself and been such just a great spokesperson for our sport. I really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate your help, Bob. I mean, you kind of helped, my career progress and put me on the map in front of people. And that helped with building a fan base and getting sponsors and being able to, do it and being able to survive, not just racing, but professionally in the sport. And I really appreciate that. And then all the advice as well as an entrepreneur. It's been an honor to get to know you also through all this. So
love it. Jesse, thank you, buddy.
You bet.
Jesse Thomas has been our guest. Again, we're brought to you by the PTO, the Pro Triathletes Organization, Amp Human, VeloFix, Normatec, Form Goggles, UCAN, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.